you wanted to focus on a couple of different topics today.
Mostly just depression and like suicide, like a mental health thing. To me, I feel like this is a huge problem. You probably tell from the last show we did, I don't mind being personal. I like being personal. Me, I feel like I grew up with a lot of anger and depression. You know, when I was in school, they were already with they were starting the ADD thing, probably when we were younger, you remember too, like,
Yeah.
that was the big thing, Prozac and things like that. They right away were telling me that I had ADD and I had issues, but I never wanted to take pills, so I never did, you know. Had issues with my father growing up in the Bronx. I was angry and I had a lot of depression, you know, and here I am in my 40s and you know, life's different. I had better stuff going on, but I still think it's there. I think depression is a big thing that probably most people have dealt with at some point. Looking at the stats, you know, the CDC stats, our favorite people, the CDC and them, but they talk about like 1 out of 10 Americans. I would think it's a lot more than that. I also like looking at suicide numbers, really high. They've been going up and up since the 2000s. It seems like 2018 to 20, they had like this little drop and then it just went right back up. The numbers to me are crazy. I think a lot of probably even underreported. I think there's a stigma with suicide. So a lot of people probably don't even want it to be, you know, there's probably a lot of things that were suicides that don't get classified. It's a huge problem. So I felt like this is a deep topic that I'd love to talk to someone like you. You probably talk more about the physical stuff, you know, the physical body with people, but I'd love to, you know, hear your thoughts on mental side of this stuff. Your thoughts on depression and yeah, this topic. We get into this really.
Yeah, it's important actually. And I think if you're not depressed, you're not paying attention.
Well said, well said.
You know,
So it's how to deal with depression, right?
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much. I mean, the mind-body complex is integrated. Therefore, if you're dealing with the physical body, you are automatically dealing with the emotional body, you're dealing with the mental sphere, right? That you can't tease them out and separate them out. It's who we are. It's the oneness of that. You can target areas, you can describe it from different regions of the body, but the pathophysiology of it all is really multiple factors are involved. And now, you know, it can come top down or bottom up. Like when people say things, oh, how did this happen? How did ADD happen? Or how did autism happen? Or how did all these things happen? You can list off multiple diagnosis pressure points that you could say, oh, see, look, it started there. Or, oh yeah, you know, here's it's because they're eating this junk, or, you know, it's because they're not sleeping properly, or it's because they've had a trauma, you know, or they've had a disconnection with their family, or a disconnection with their community, or, you know, you could do it from they eat junk, or, you know, they're being bullied. Like, so you can explain depression from all these different avenues, and they're all correct. And I think that's why you don't really look for cures in that regard, like, oh, just pop a pill and it goes away. It's integrated.
To be their MO, even from when I was a child, right? That's their doctor system. It's, yeah, you're depressed, here's some pills. But I would think that a lot of these pills probably add to the problem. It's not fixing the problem, right? And then even a lot of these pills say the side effects or direct effects, like Dawn and David say, the direct effects could cause you to have suicidal problems and more mental issues.
I remember before I was studying medicine deeply, like I was the the dabbler beforehand. But when I was in that, and I was still in university, I met a man named Tucker Gomberg. Okay, he was in the Toronto area, but he was all over Canada, and he was an amazing, dynamic environmentalist. And he actually worked so hard in the Toronto area and in Alberta that he, specifically in Alberta, he helped that province establish a really solid recycling setup where it was really done responsibly. And like he was just, he could move mountains, that guy. And he was severely depressed. And when I was an activist, with him at that time, I also was severely depressed because I looked at the world and I said, we're destroying everything. We're killing everything. We're disrespecting everything. How can I condone this? And it made me feel sick inside my body. And I wanted to take action. And so the next phase of that would be, okay, I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to do something about this. And I tried all these different things to do it. And here I am trying to change my external projection, okay? Which you could kind of say is a fool's errand on some levels.
Well, you were jumping in, right? That's what I did too in the beginning.
Well, it just makes, to you, that's the most logical next step. I must act, I must change something, I must speak out, I must say this is wrong and try to make amends or try to affect change, right? And very youthful thinking, of course. But I saw that he was such a lovely, humored man. I couldn't imagine that he would have taken his own life, which is what had happened. And when I met his wife, Angela Bishop, she then we did a tour together actually after this, where I was teaching, this was after naturopathic college, I was teaching about the dangers of pharmaceutical drugs, and specifically the psychedelic, aspects where they're suppressing the mind or affecting neurotransmitters and these sorts of things, right? Where there's psychoactive components that they're giving people,
Yeah.
and not the good kind. So we'll talk about some of these, plant remedies as well that do show promise in some of these conditions. But what they're using are all suppressants, as I've spoken of before. I mean, these are really strong drugs that once you're on them, you can't just stop them. And most times they don't tell you that is the case, that you can't just, quit cold turkey. So the withdrawal is brutal. And you can actually kill yourself just by stopping. Like you can die just by cold turkey stopping some of these drugs, which is, they just so willy-nilly hand them out. And also they destroy different components of the body, including the gut. And we'll talk about the gut-brain connection too in a few minutes. But, when he took his life, what she found out was that in the so-called side effects of the drug is suicidal ideation, okay? And she was aghast. She didn't know, and she was upset, of course, with the doctors that they didn't give full disclosure, and she had gone to them directly, and there was some words, said, and she made it her, life work to teach that these are dangerous, and to, especially in that community, right? So a very powerful work and a really hard lesson. And he just basically rode his bike to a bridge and just jumped off. I mean, it was like, I don't even know how, it was such a split-second decision, right? Like, and they say that even as people are like in free fall, like when that happens and those types of deaths, that instantly when they got off the bridge, they wish they were back on, like they regret the moment they jump off, and that's such a tragedy, because life is so precious and so short, really. I mean, you see it in retrospect. You don't think about your death when you're in your 20s and 30s sometimes.
Exactly.
But later you go, wow, now I'm 40, now I'm 50. Oh, wow, okay. So how many more decades do I have left? I know how fast a year goes. Like a year goes like that, right? So you start to think a little more existential as you get older, and you reflect on the way you were, right? And that alone, that's your midlife crisis, that's your depression and that segment of life. But like when we are, like when I experienced that and when we went through that with Tooker, that was my first kind of wake up call that, okay, wait a second. These drugs are extremely harmful. I'm going to study this material. I'm going to also teach this material and help people, solve these problems holistically, which means dealing with everything that's coming up. And a lot of it is just this disconnection, a disconnection with people, with nature, with themselves, with love, or the sensation of love, and or feeling like they're not connected to even having a purpose anymore. When someone's depressed, they're flat. Their affect is flat. It's like a phase. So the first phase, like I was saying, rah rah rah, we're gonna change the world, and this kind of, that becomes the energy lift where you're trying to push out and change this to make you feel better inside. But that runs out. That you burn out, you burn that out, right? So when you are burnt out from this energy where you're maybe making mistakes, trying to do these changes, you can get to this flat place where you don't want to feel anymore. You're tired. It hurts to go to that feeling now. It hurts to think of it like, oh, all these animals dying and all these bad things happening constantly, right? You'd rather tune out, you'd rather distract yourself or escape. So then the escapism begins, right? Because you've tried, you can't change it, right?
I think that's what most of us are doing,
Yeah.
So I was going to mention that to you. To me, it's like music or something. Like I'll go listen to music or watch a movie, and just to get your mind off of things, like you said, escapism.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I get it. I do it. We all do it. We're just trying to figure out how to soothe ourselves and how to feel good again. I totally get it. And there's good ways and bad ways of doing this, but it's similar because we're really trying to get new fresh perspectives, because then what we're realizing is our minds and the internal state of ourselves is how we see our world, right? So it's the lens effect. Because I saw my world, excuse me, back then as, it's a damaged world and I have to fix it. And it's my responsibility because, why am I here then, or this sort of thing. So I pulled that into my philosophy. And because I'm very sensitive and I'm an empath and these sorts of things, I feel everything so deeply. And I see people who do feel really deeply become the most depressed and suicidal and have anxiety issues and these sorts of things.
Yeah.
Because they're pulling in all of this everywhere. It's overwhelming. So I get you're trying to like, now let's hone it in. Let's focus on this, like, marijuana use or alcohol use or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. There's like 18 million different things.
Lots of ways to escape or block it out. Right?
Yeah, you could name them forever. But the idea is, and I get it, but just know, like, watch yourself. Like, I think as we go through all of these things, and I've done this to myself, and I continually witness myself. How am I doing? Where's my mental health at? Where's my emotional health at? How am I feeling in my body? This sort of stuff. So we have to become consciously aware. That's the next stage, like how to prevent it, how to feel good. Because that's where people are going, I'm depressed, I want out, I don't like this, it's yucky. There's a couple of things that, from a mental emotional aspect, one second. That the rain, whatever's been happening with the constant rain here, it's been washing out all this weird white stuff. And I've been feeling it in my lungs lately.
Wow. I was going to ask you about the fires, if that's affecting you, because I know out in New York and everything, seeing it.
Yeah, it's got me a little. I'm actually on a cleanse right now again, but it smelled like an old, like the old man in the sky was having a big tobacco pipe. That's what it smelled like, tobacco pipe.
Wow.
Smell. So it's actually kind of nostalgic for me in some weird way, but it was quite thick, and I stayed indoors as much as I could. But this is garden planting time, and they did it all through where we are outside. But I definitely, now with the rain and the dampness, I feel my lungs like cleansing it out, which is normal, natural, right? Like you get something in you, the body's going to cleanse and purge and get it out. And that's the same with emotions. you know, and like what I was saying too, with the, like, we hold in stuff, and that also can lead to depression, where you're not communicating your needs and your feelings and your wants. You're not able to talk to somebody. You're not able to even hear yourself. Like, I think women and men often deal, so they do have different brains because our hormones change the way our brains work. I found that typically, this is just a generalization, women will seek out another woman and counsel and talk it out until she can hear herself and find her own solutions, generally speaking, right?
Yeah.
And the men tend to be, that's not cool. Like, don't, that's the conditioning is, you don't do that.
Yeah, see, I was gonna bring that up. They show
Yeah.
like, it seems like the women's numbers are so much higher for depression, but I think it's more that women are actually more comfortable in talking about it. So maybe that's why the numbers look so much dramatic. I think a lot of guys, like you said, have a stigma of not wanting to talk about the stuff, where women, maybe it's more easier.
Well, the suicide rate, I think, is higher in men, I
It
believe.
definitely is. Yeah. Yeah, way higher.
Yeah. And especially nowadays, I'm sure, because like the white man is hunted now. It's but also it's that stigma around, you know, you have to be strong, and you know, and what is strength, and that definition of strength. And so if strength is not defined as expression, and like, you know, be okay to be vulnerable, right?
Yeah, don't cry, things
Don't
like
cry.
that.
Yeah, don't
Be a
show
man.
weakness. Yeah. And hey, I'm a Leo. I don't like showing weakness. Leos don't like showing weakness. They don't like being in that position, because they come in as a warrior, and a warrior has to protect the weaker, and, you know, and the meek and the babies and these sorts of things. So you're like, too bad, like, I'll fight to the death thing. So I can't show my vulnerabilities, because if I'm have an enemy trying to get to these things I'm protecting, well, they've got to get through me first. And so I can't be vulnerable, because they'll see that and they'll come for that vulnerability. So it's sort of like built into the thinking. But ultimately, you have to soften too. And like, one of the things I was doing when I was feeling bouts of depression or sadness or whatever is stop labeling it as a negative. Like, I kept saying, oh, this is terrible, I hate this feeling, I hate what it is, and it's bad, and I want it to go away, right? Same thing like with pregnancy. It's so painful, you know, or it's so intense, and you're like, ooh, I just want it to be over, I want it to go away. And one thing Buddhism taught me was that you actually do the opposite, where you go into the feeling, you
Embrace
own
it.
the feeling, you accept the feeling. You're like, I feel it's an tapping, EFT, emotional freedom technique. Anyone who has depression, I would highly recommend, or anxiety, highly recommend doing emotional freedom technique tapping, because you're tapping meridians, you know, on your body, and you're saying what you're feeling. You're expressing to your own self what you're feeling. So like I'm saying, you know, right now I'm feeling really overwhelmed. I feel kind of depressed, but it's okay. This is just a sensation in my body right now, and I am processing it, you know? So you're like acknowledging it, you're not denying it, you're not escaping it, you're saying, yeah, this is tough. I'm acknowledging this is tough, but also I'm acknowledging it's okay, and I can work through it, and I have the skill set to do it. And I have faith inside my body that I'm changing this, and I'm in control of it, meaning it's not going to take me down. So these methods really help, and they're very simple, and you can do it on the spot. You can do it anywhere, right? But if you just swallow it and you bury it, what happens? Like, your gut gets tight,
It's gonna make it worse.
in their shoulders, you know, like,
Yeah.
the emotion and the mental stuff goes in your body. You can tell, you know, when you're stressed, what happens? Your heart rate goes up. You can feel it, right? You know, your digestion abilities go down when you're in those states. Like, some people are depressed, they don't want to eat. Some people are depressed, they do want to eat. So it all depends. Like for me,
I get
I
where
don't
I
want
have
to.
no appetite. I
I
have
have
no
no appetite.
appetite, and I can't sleep. Those are like my signs. When I see that I've lost my appetite and the sleep, then I'm like, all right, am I getting too depressed and I need to snap out of this? To me, I feel like what you mentioned, being able to talk to someone, that seems to, in my experience, those are the things that help me. Is being able to talk to someone that isn't going to judge you and is going to listen and be there for you. That's really the only thing that ever helped me, you know, and part of this was, you know, I'm sure you talk to a lot more people than I do, but you know, I leave my email and I try to talk to everybody I can. And the number one thing, the reaction when I talk to someone on the phone, a truther, you know, in our communities, people are angry. And I could hear the anger and depression. It's like you get the anger at first, and then when they're done and you listen to the rant, then it gets to the depression part. And it's just, you know, like you said, like this world is so messed up, and that's why I try to make it a point to be there to talk to people. And that's what actually got me thinking like I wanted to do the show with you, you know, because I think especially for people like us that know how bad it is out there, we probably need it the most. And that's why I wanted to do something like this to touch on these points.
Yeah, and like what I was saying, like we're labeling this like we label what's going on as bad, but if we just looked at it as pure energy, like energy in motion is your emotion. And if you just look at it as raw energy, don't label it as good, bad, or anything, it just is, then you can go, okay, I'm going to own that as this is where I'm at right now. Because if you're going to throw out garbage on the floor, pick up your room, you got to actually put your hands on the stuff and you got to move it to the garbage, right? So that means you got to touch it. You got to own it. You can't get rid of something or cleanse something or clean something until you really get to the touching of it, right?
Yeah.
Rather than avoid. Ooh, I don't like it. Go here, distract here. Ooh, I don't like it. Oh, it's back again. Oh, you know, this, because then it's festering, then it worsens, and then it's harder to get out of in the long run. And we're really trying to look at how can we get into more prevention of it ultimately, right? Rather than always trying to dig ourselves out of a hole.
Yeah.
And then and then really asking yourself, like, plumb the depths of the why. So once you go, oh, there's a yucky feeling here. Or you go, you know what, it is anger. It feels really angry. I'm very angry. I'm going to own that I feel angry right now. Okay. But what's anger? Like, where's the anger coming from? And what is it? What's the root cause? Well, it's grief. Grief produces the anger. And we don't want to touch the sadness, because the sadness makes us express the weeping and the, you know, all of this upset, and you have all these judgments around there, right? Like if I get emotional in a day, I'm in my emotions for most of that day. Like as a female, I can't seem to pull back out of it and be in cognitive spaces anymore and be like, you know, didactic. I'm really in it's a feelings day for me, and I'm going to take care and nurture my feelings. You know, I might even have to cancel things or whatever if that happens. But say I'm feeling emotional, I wake up in the morning, I'm feeling an emotion. I'm like, oh, I got to work today.
Yeah.
You know, I can't have a weepy day, you know, because so I have to like schedule and I'm expressing myself and this sort of stuff, which, you know, that's an individual issue probably, but you know, but I have my way. Like everyone should have their own individual way that works for them. You know, it might be journal writing, it might be dancing, whatever it is to move the energy through your body. And it's like transmutation, right? You're taking like that grief and you're transmuting it into whatever it comes out as, in a way that is not going to hurt someone else or blast it on somebody else. And that's where the anger is so dangerous, because if you don't touch that grief, you don't get to the root cause of why it's there and what it entails. So if you're not plumbing the depths and going, okay, why though is the grief there? What's the grief about? Okay, go deeper. Like, oh, it's a loss. Oh, it's when this thing happened in my life. And then you're trying to then cognitively rationalize, you know, why it happened. And it doesn't always work like that. You might have talk therapy and you get to a kernel of why your vision of why you had the grief was kind of askew. Like maybe you didn't have an important piece of information about something that had happened. And I've helped so many people with this type of thing, right? Just to help their perspective change a little bit so they can sort of get relief through the thinking part of it, where it's like, oh, you're right, my thinking was in error, you know, about this event or about this thing that happened to me. And I am in victimhood. I am wallowing in it. I'm wallowing and wallowing, poor me, you know, which is an ego state, a bad ego state.
Yeah. I found that out one day.
Yeah. And so, okay, that means I haven't done the discipline on my ego That means my ego's on the stage. I have to address that. I have to nurture my inner child. I have to send love to myself and tell myself, self-soothe, really say, it's okay. I'm okay. And we'll be okay. Whatever mantra you got to say to yourself, really, at that point, to acknowledge that whatever you're going to go through, whatever the gift is in the depression, because there's always a gift, whatever it is, I'm going to find it. I'm going to find what it is. And I'm going to shift the perspective on what I think this is, this terrible, terrible feeling. I don't want it to go away. And go, wait a second, this terrible feeling is not going away. What have I not gained or gleaned from this? Because there's always a gift. There's always a reason for why this is here. And I'm going to find it. And that's my determination. So that's a sea change in the way you're thinking. So that sometimes, sometimes if the mind is sharp enough, or you can clearly see that the individual can rationalize what they're feeling, then you can work with that, and the talk therapy actually can kind of be helpful. But that's not always the case.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, so what about like for love? Because I feel like for me and for most of people like us, it's the anger part of the lies, deception, not being able to communicate. But to me, the big one is love. I've even done a thing recently on animals, showing like the love between animals. There's animals that have cried, you know, a dog and a lion together, and when they're separated, they're crying like, we got to be together. I think it's even in animals, like we don't want to be alone. We want to be loved. We want to get along. And for the people that have maybe had a hard childhood, maybe don't have the best family, maybe they don't have a family, you know, I feel like love, you know, that people need to feel like they're loved, or that they important, you know, like their life has value, that they're not just like floating around and nobody cares about you. I feel like that's one of the big points with depression, is the love aspect and feeling lonely. So for something like that, how would you handle that? Like your advice on talking about that to someone?
Well, it's the like I was saying, first thing is own it. You own it. I feel lonely, you know, I feel tired. I feel unloved. I don't feel cared for. I don't feel seen. I don't feel heard. Whatever it is, you got to claim it. That's always going to be the first step, you know, is because now you're the owner, you're in charge here again, because I think the when it gets out of control, you don't feel in charge of your capacity anymore. And that's where now people will come in, and they are going to have to direct you. And these are the really bad states where, you know, they're going to be hospitalized because they're gone. They're gone into that trauma pain, and they're lost in it. They're not connected to themselves, right? So that's like worst case, like you know, where you can't even. I've had a few cases like this. There's not even words. They can't communicate because they're so in their trauma body, they can't get out of it. It's just pain, 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 pain. There's nothing to rationalize there. It's all feeling body at that point. And things that will bring people out of those states tend to be things like music, art, something in nature, beauty of nature, or being in nature.
Yeah, animals, I found. Yeah.
Animals, yes, we have a lot of therapy animals for this exact reason. Bring them back out of this trauma pain and get them connecting something very simple, a flower, a butterfly, something that will remind them that life is good. There is goodness here. It's not all bad. It's not all lost. You know, it's not like you can't come back from it. Like I've come back from the weirdest, most like stuff, and this builds your faith, actually. Like when you go through tumultuous experiences.
I agree. Yeah.
You know, where like I was on a park bench, broke with nothing, alone, you know, I'm going, what the heck?
But it made you stronger because you survived, right? Like I told you, I was in the woods, you know, living in the woods in a tent, you know, for a while. So
yeah, there's a lot of people in
tents. I found myself with that. I became very connected more spiritually.
Yeah.
I felt. I agree, you know, the first step is we have to admit. I feel so bad. I mean, neighbors, friends, kids I went to school with. I mean, so many people have died in the past couple of years. A lot of them they'll mark off as overdoses, but talking to their wives and family members, it seems like they used the drugs to commit suicide. They took extra. It's like, how do we know? Like you said, like when that guy you were talking about, like someone that's done so much, and you would think that how could they be in that mental state? That's something I'm always trying to think of. Shout out to your buddy Fabian too, for his loss. How could we? What are the signs? Like I remember growing up, you'd see a lot of, and it was always girls. I didn't see guys, but it was girls that would like cut themselves.
Yeah.
And that's like one of the signs people would say if you see people cutting themselves. But sometimes there isn't cutting signs. Like, is there anything that you would say is like a dead giveaway or like something we should be looking for? And maybe sometimes we just can't, right? If the person doesn't open up enough, we might not know and might not be able to help.
Yeah, I mean, if you're intuitive enough, like I think everyone should, people should be doing right now is going within as much as they possibly can. However you go in, meditation, exercise that's more Zen-like, where you're really feeling connected, nature walks, whatever it takes for you to go in and really reunite with your faith and have hope again for things and find the little things that bring you joy, like in each moment, like what can I find right now that there's joy? Because joy is not something that lasts ever. So if you want a joyful life, you find blips and moments of joy and you look at that and you honor that.
Yeah,
and this place is about suffering, unfortunately. This like as soon as
we gotta
I feel
have both.
Right. As soon as the extremes, like it's duality, we're in duality. And I realized once I realized that this place, the suffering is here because of our ignorance, and the ignorance is there because we've lost, we've fallen away because we're trying to, realize something, and we have to lose something precious to find something because it's duality. We're gonna be on the spectrum of the pendulum swing until we master something, and so suffering is part of it because it makes us have to act. It forces us to move forward. If everything was like hedonistically perfect, which is what the lefty Marxist thinking like somehow
they can build.
Yeah, somehow if you didn't have to work and you didn't have to have money, and if everyone was equal, then everyone would be happy. It's such a lie. It's the actual opposite. But if you accept that suffering is here because it's trying to hone us and shape us and show us and teach us and clear us of karma or whatever debt we may have thought we had, whether it's true or not, right? Or we're self-punishing, or we have limited ideas, and that's what's causing our suffering. But if the suffering's there, it's going to teach you. And so as soon as I accepted that this is a suffering, a place of suffering and beauty and love and all of these things, I just owned it. It's the same thing. Like, yes, okay, oh, I'm suffering right now. Okay, I'm suffering right now and it's temporary, because I know that in the next moment I could turn around and be just full of joy. Like something could happen that would just surprise me or delight me, right? Like I saw a deer on my property yesterday. My cat was, and the deer were having a little conversation. And I caught it, right? Like I looked and I caught this deer and my cat, having a little telepathic conversation. And my heart just, opened just like that. And wherever you're at, you have those opportunities and you seize them. So, but I wanted to mention the cutting thing, because this is our poor youth. Our youth is where I'm greatly concerned, because the tech world has taken them, and it could.
I have a 12-year-old daughter, so I'm very worried for her.
Me too. I'm worried too, and I'm of the camp where I need her to know it. I need her to know the tech. I need her to understand all the aspects. So I can't just say no. I mean, I said no for as long as I possibly could. She had no TV. She had no screen time until she was way older. I did all that to make sure her brain was protected. And no child under the age of, I think, 6 should have any flashing screen stuff or any screen in their face. Okay, that's ridiculous. They should not have a baby with a phone in their hand. That is child abuse. Okay? It
should be, yeah.
And because their brains are growing rapidly, and as you're doing this to their eyes, their reality is warping. because that's not real. That two-dimensional screen is not real. And there's studies on it showing that it's brain damaging. But
Oh, yeah.
now that she's like almost 12, like your daughter, you can't keep it all away. You have to teach them how to have safe tech, be aware of things, limit their tech, understand addictions, understand how they're trying to make you always on these devices by pinging your dopamine, and you're like affecting the way that you get reward systems, like the Pavlovian freaking dog bell ringing, and all of that. But the cutting part and this self-harm, okay, is generally because in these cases they don't know what they're feeling. They don't feel, maybe they don't have sensations of love and wonderful feelings. They only get the crappy feelings, the negative feelings. They're not feeling the good stuff. So they're cutting to feel, they're cutting to try to get into themselves. But instead of they're not taught how to go inside themselves properly. So they're trying to get inside of themselves by opening themselves up, and
physically instead of spiritually.
Right. So, these children are not being honed into their own faith, into their, into understanding of themselves and emotions. So with my daughter, whatever emotion, if she has an emotion in a moment, she's going to be a teenager and all that soon. I already have trained her to check herself, like to check in, what is happening, and that it's a temporary feeling, and to breathe through it, and to know that, this is just, there's hormones involved here. That's not, your thoughts might not be rational during certain times of the month because you're having different certain hormones, and that affects the way you think and feel and act. And that's okay, but understand that's not you, really. That's not a definition of you. This is a changing individual, and you're going to have all these surges of emotions. And that's why hormones are so important, because a lot of the depression I'm seeing is also tied into this hormonal problem, an imbalance problem. And that's also growing too, because that's why we're seeing children who want out of their bodies, and they think they have dysmorphia, or they think now something, if they go to a different sex, it'll solve it, or if they become a furry, it'll solve it. It's just a more grand level of escapism. It's the same thing, same shit, different pile, right? So they're trying to figure this out, but they don't have the support and the language and the cognition to do it properly without real guidance. But what's the guidance coming? Brainwashed teachers, brainwashed doctors, dangerous predators that are just waiting for a susceptible youth to look for love somewhere on the internet, and they'll provide it, and groom them and this sort of thing. And this is why our children, the suicide rate is high across the board, but also in children.
Who don't know the importance of the gut. The gut is basically like the brain, right?
Yeah.
It's like a brain almost. Right? It's very important, the gut. Can you explain that a little to people who might not know?
Yeah, there's a lot of studies on that too, a lot of information on that. So like the gut makes a lot of these, what we're calling neurotransmitters. Now, this theory has been questioned and is under scrutiny, and has been for a while, that what's claimed is that the gut makes the serotonin, and it does. We know that it does make these things. The question is, does it pass what we're calling the blood-brain barrier, which is also coming under scrutiny and question as we look at the new biology. So it's going to be interesting in the next decade, as we go back to the normal science and what we thought we believed, and we actually unearth that again and dig that out and say, oh, whoops, error, mistake here. And then, all the other science that's done upon the false science is also wrong. But what we're finding is that that serotonin doesn't seem to go to the brain, it seems to be used elsewhere. So what else? So these systems seem to try to be separated for some reason, to probably protect the tissues. So regardless, we know the microbial aspect of the vitamins, nutrients, and all the digestive capabilities and stuff, that's going to nourish the body, right? So if your microbiome is off, you're not going to digest your food, you're not going to make your vitamins, you're not going to digest your minerals properly. So you're going to be in nutritional deficiency states, which right there, a nutritional deficiency can cause depression. I've had people just low on omega-3 fats, and that was their depression.
Because you're going to have a lack of energy, right? The energy, the
tired,
the drive.
Yeah, your drive. What if you're iron deficient? I was a vegan for a long time, and I put myself into iron deficiency a lot, especially when I was working out more or thinking harder with studies, right? You're using more nutrition and I'd be wiped. I'm like, why do I feel like this? And that easily can put you into depression. You can't do the things you used to do well. You can't, you don't want to, yeah, libido goes down, all of things that you like or whatever. So just that alone could be vitamin D deficiency, vitamin D. Oh my gosh, I was so depleted in vitamin D. It was crazy. As vegans, D, zinc, iron, I was low in all of those, but B12, you know, those ones, but I was still supplementing, but I wasn't enough, you know, and I would get in these depressed states. So making sure at least to address the nutritional component of depression is really vital, and the gut microbiome. So taking probiotics, fermented foods, you know, maybe digestive enzymes before eating might alleviate some of the pressure. Doing enemas, like coffee enemas, can help like move along the bowels, help the liver clean up the blood, and, you know, clean up the terrain a little bit better, and help then all these absorptions and assimilation of nutrients. Things like DMSO help as well for the same reason. I mean, there's so many aspects that we can deal with, but
this is the stuff I knew you knew stuff like this is the stuff that I don't know about, and thank you for sharing. This is great information.
Yeah, there's like okay, so that's the nutritional aspect. So we have to always address all the areas that could contribute to that state. So this is why, like, a clinician will look at all the different areas, a good clinician. But a person who doesn't have the luxury of a clinician can be self-reflective and find out, you know, that, oh yeah, I haven't been eating well because, you know, I've been constipated, or I've been in a state where, you know, food is not, I'm not interested in food anymore. And so it can compound the whole situation where they're not eating, and now they're going into further depression because they're not giving the nutrition back. For people in that state, and I've been there, I would say how I get out of it is I start with smoothies, like something really.
That's what I'm drinking right now, is smoothie.
They always help me out because I don't want to cook, and I don't want to really chew even, like, I don't, it seems too heavy, because I feel heavy. I feel weighted down and heavy. I don't want anything heavy in me anymore. And so I find putting like supplements, like I'll put like ginseng, adaptogens help with, if it's coming from burnout, from your adrenals, like being totally taxed, that can also cause a state of depression, because now you're not producing the hormones properly for your body. And also you're not able to have the energy and the wherewithal to like get yourself out of the situation. Because if your cortisol levels are really high, you're in anxiety states all the time, you burn yourself out being like frenetic, and then you collapse. That's the depression phase that you'll see in anxiety states. So they kind of go hand in hand. Like I see both, you know, a lot.
I recently found out that rhinos with the cortisol from stress, they'll actually die from too much. The cortisol will kill them. Yeah.
If your cortisol levels are too high, you can have a heart attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So amazing.
Yeah. And I mean, so like many ways to get there, it seems.
Yeah.
But just as many ways to get back. And that, so nutrition has to be considered, gut microbiome, and not only when you said, you know, the gut is one of the brains, you're right, but also the heart. So we have brain, heart, brain, because there's just as many neurons also in the heart as in the brain, head brain, and in the gut brain. So there's 3 brains. So all 3 brains have to be addressed, right? Physical brain, so that's your nutrition, all that stuff. The heart, so that's how you're feeling, like you're, you know, the more esoteric aspects of what's going on, and the trauma aspects, and why you're suppressing your own self, like the love inside yourself. And then your gut brain, and that's like also nutrition based, but more on the microbiome side of it, where you want the bacteria and you want to balance that. But how does it affect the brain? We don't 100% know. We're assuming it's because it's neurotransmitters that we're producing going to the brain. And I've said this before, but now new science is coming out that's suggesting might be different. It might be a different mechanism or whatever. So what I'll do is when we post this, I'll put some links, some articles and stuff where people can contemplate like what's going on, because we're kind of in the middle of transferring all this knowledge over. So, but we do know that when we affect the gut, we affect the way we think. That we know. We just might not know exactly, what. And then we can affect the brain through things like mushrooms, like I do microdosing mushrooms also. Even the Iteracare wand that I've recently been using, the last 8 months or so, that totally healed so much of me. But when I first started using it, my mood lifted. I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting. Like, one of the first effects was I felt happier, just generally.
That's a good sign.
And well, yeah, it's a good sign, but I think it was I was actually structuring my water. That's one of the things that this terahertz tech does, is it helps your easy zones, restructure themselves. So that means your batteries are being recharged. And when your batteries are being recharged, you're gonna have more energy. You can have more energy, you feel a little bit better, right? Feel a little bit more lifted. So it makes sense. But the hard stuff.
And you talking about the vegan stuff, I've been pushing it hard too. To me, meat and dairy. I mean, I keep telling people about that documentary, Forks Over Knives. You've probably seen that.
Yeah.
I think there's so much, just that documentary alone, it's just overwhelming evidence that shows that, I mean, we weren't designed and we weren't meant to really be eating meat. Even our teeth aren't designed, we weren't meant to eat meat, and it's actually bad. And I've been finding UFC fighters and people who aren't skinny, like they always try to make it like vegans or like unhealthy people. There's athletes out there that are vegan, and they'll say that meat and dairy, when they take it out, they recover faster. Like you said, like the body is able to recover faster. All that is probably a lot of work for your body to break down, right? So a lot of energy is going to go into the meat and that stuff. While a smoothie and plant-based, we'd probably have a lot more energy. That's the point I'm getting at, is if we were to get away from meat and dairy, probably people would see a big increase in energy, I feel. Would you agree with that?
I've done every diet and I've deconstructed a lot of the different diets and what's really happening. And I feel at this stage that it's the chemicals that are the problem, and the way that we are, how we're doing it. So for example, you drink a pasteurized dairy, that's mucus forming inflammatory creation. You're going to have a negative impact on your body with that. Meat that is done with poor animal husbandry. America seems to be the predominant. I hear a lot of people, they eat North American diets, they get fat. Obesity is like a very strong link of obesity and metabolic disorders to depression.
Heart disease, everything.
Heart disease. We know that this is there's more morbidity, associated with this, but all of the different diets, like when they go to then Mexico or Europe, where they don't do GMO or they don't, do the same things to the animals, they actually lose weight, eat more, eat all kinds of stuff, and they're fine. So I actually think the diet problem is our terrain problem. I think we could eat anything, and actually, I think we never were designed to eat at all. I think we weren't actually. The original plan was we were breatharian. We don't need to eat. We could eat for pleasure, but we don't have to eat, because we know people who do get their energy from the sun. They ground, they drink sun charged water, and that's it. And they just do proper breathing, and the breathing and the sunlight is what charges their batteries, and that's what they're rolling on. They don't need food. So I think we didn't need food at all. I think we've gotten to this place where
I agree with you. I think there's a lot of evidence for that. I've talked to some scientist guys talking about that too, with the energy. I agree. I think there is a lot of evidence for that.
Yeah, because we can see even with the soil, right? So say you have damaged soil, it doesn't have a lot of nutrition in it. Well, if you do electroculture and you get the copper in there and you start creating magnetism around the root bulb, they find the nutrition easily. They are able to structure themselves. They're able to get water working for them properly, and the minerals, then they can just pull some minerals out and pull things from the air and feed that way, right? They don't need all the chemicals or all the different, this is from damaged soil. We can see this. So that means there's another fuel coming in. There's another way to run the system with light and with proper structured water, which, we've discovered easy water, fourth phase of water, and that's an exclusion zone. There's nothing in it. It's a hexagonal pattern. It's structured, and it's right next to bulk water. And bulk water is H2O, and this is basically H3O2. And so all the hydrogens are bonded together in this beautiful lattice structure. And that is what allows for the minerals to go back and forth between the two barriers, between the two waters, like running like a battery. So once that's happening, you can live and thrive and all this. But here we are, right? Here we are, we've descended, we've fallen, we've forgotten, we've been, gets us back to why we're depressed. Right?
Yeah.
But we see this and we're wanting to change it. And at least we're trying to control what's coming into our bodies. We're actively if you're not actively on your cleansing game, then you're not paying attention, because there's.
So I wanted to bring up too about Canada. This was definitely, I was going to bring this up. I think it happened in 2016. Did you guys started a program like assisted suicide? I think, right, since 2016. And the numbers have been going up. And I was looking into that. It's called like MAID or something like that is like the term, like assisted.
Medically assisted death, but I can't remember what.
Yeah.
Injectable death? I don't know if it's in.
Yeah, something like that. And I mean, I wanted to ask your thoughts on this. Obviously, to me, I was shocked that and then when I started looking at the reasons, in the beginning, it was like more like, medical conditions. But then as time's gone on, it's almost like, and there's stories that come out where it's like, if you're low income, if you just not going to make money, we'll just come kill you. Like, to me, it's gotten even crazier now. And some reports have come out that it's not just like terminally ill. It's basically like, if you're depressed, they'll come. So
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about this, you being up there.
Oh, Canada is sick. It's so sick. I'm torn every day. Let's just say I get up in this country and I wish I wasn't here, but at the same time, I want to fix it, or I want to help. I don't want to abandon my country. You know what I mean? I don't want to say, fuck it, it's a wash. Let's get out of here, right?
Yeah.
I want to
go
see
down.
if there's. Because I love people, and I mean, actually, I kind of have a love-hate with people. There's
I know what you mean.
But it's not that I actually hate the people. I'm angry at the people, and I say it like that. When people are in anger and they say something that's silly and they don't really, after they go, I didn't really mean that, and I said that. Like, we do that because we're just so like, it's just that grief is so deep in us, and the anger that comes from it, like it's just like fire. I'm like, nah, you want to scream, and so sometimes you say things in the heat of that anger that you wish it would just go away somehow, right? But that's not rational thought when you're in those emotions. And then you come to rationality and you're like, well, no, I actually love people. That's why I'm so mad at them, because I love them, stupid idiots.
Yeah, if you didn't care, you would just walk away and not worry about people
you
poisoning.
Wouldn't be angry. That's right. You wouldn't. Yes, it's exactly that. It's just hurt. It's hurt at seeing their ignorance, and that it's there. The answers are actually out there for them, but they seek not, and that's frustrating, right? They're in suffering, and you're watching them do it to themselves, and you're like, oh my gosh, you don't have to do this. You can change this. But
God, there's great people like you out there that hopefully they could find, people like you that could change their world and
it's why I touch on so many topics too, because everyone's going to come from different things that are important to them. It might be their cosmology that's what helps them come out of depression. Or sometimes I was depressed when I figured out that they lied about everything. Like it's hard to wake up.
Yeah.
And that's why we have to be even more tender with ourselves as people who are awake to the lies, right? Because it's so overwhelming. It's like they lie literally about everything and they keep lying, and you're like, oh God, no, guys, like just stop listening to them. But you can't control people. You can only control yourself, and that's why if you start to get too out there and controlling, then you have to stop yourself and go, I need to check myself inside first and get right with me, And as I begin to change this hologram inside of myself, like that's the Ho'oponopono knowledge, right? Like as I affect me, I affect the outer, because my filters change and how I see the world is different. And everyone should have a gratitude practice of some sort, just where you count your blessings sort of procedure, where you're like, and even if you are living in a tent, then count the blessings that you have the tent. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
doesn't matter how.
That's actually where I found out to stop having the pity parties. And like you were talking about, like feeling bad for yourself. It was actually there where I stopped, and it all started hitting me and making sense. And I was just talking to God. Like I felt that spiritual connection, like sleeping with your head on the dirt in the woods, like I felt more connected. I didn't have the rubber, and things cutting me off from the earth's energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's another great thing, like water, also the sound of water being by like a river or a stream, so peaceful. Yeah, nature. To me, it's music and animals is usually what I'll turn to.
Yeah.
I just love animals, all of them. And just being around them will usually get me, feeling better, just seeing how cute they are,
You have to ask for help, and you have to, and that, by the way, that's a self-sabotaging thing, to never ask for help. And I didn't realize that in myself. I thought it was strong to not ask for help, but actually it's self-sabotaging not to ask for help, because especially when you legitimately need it, right? And it's because you don't care, you don't have enough self-worth to feel you're worth it for other people to help you. So it's actually a self-worth issue to not ask for help. And once I started really cluing into that, I had to reframe the way I was, interacting with my world. But like the whole trying to the killing you softly thing with the maid, right? Like this, now they're saying if you're homeless, like there's this one guy said, I'm going to be homeless and I'm disabled, I'm a vet. The veterans now, oh my gosh, actually I've been getting more involved with the veterans. Yeah. I'm getting more involved with helping veterans, because they have skill sets and they deserve our attention and some help, and they're a lot of them
they're actually more come back and commit suicide than actually died in the war. That's fact.
Yes.
So they're 2-3 times more likely to kill themselves than any group is military. Yeah.
It's sick. It's trained into this virtue signaling shit, because they are hurt people. So hurt people hurt people. So these are unresolved individuals who probably had massive trauma. I saw a thread yesterday, the day before, of it started off with a woman saying, I was 3. And then it'll say, I was 4, I was 5, I was 6. And what they were doing, and then there was a thread, and then there would be another woman said, I was 2, I was 3, I was 16, and on. I'm like, what is this? I'm like, this is all their sexual abuse. They're listing their sexual abuse. 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years. And I freaking lost my mind reading this. Like, it was an endless thread. I'm not kidding. I couldn't get to the bottom.
Yeah, that's really
the thread.
Really sad.
And I went, this is an epidemic. These were, what the hell? Like, now those children, they have, like I said, with birth, that damage.
They're traumatized.
Now they're extra traumatized. Now they've split. So a child that doesn't have a rational thought, because rational thought doesn't come until about 7 or 8 years of age, and they're abused at that age, they can't rationalize that. So that becomes a feeling inside their body, a feeling that cannot close. So it's an open loop trauma, a wound that won't.
I heard that it could cause multiple personality disorder.
Multiple personality,
creating new personalities.
We're actually loving by nature. We're loving beings. We want love. We want peace. We want. If you ask anybody, they want that, unless they're a true psychopath, and they don't.
Exactly. Yeah. But you're right.
But they play on that with us. They use us because of it. So they'll say, "Love is love," and you're like, "Yes, love is love. Doesn't matter who you love. Doesn't matter if you're a woman and you love another woman." And I agree, it doesn't. But that's not the point. That's not what they're saying. And that's not what they're doing. It's the slippery slope thing where it's like, well, now, we accepted that there's gay people. Okay, great. They can get married. Yay. We did it. Yay. But now this is beyond. This is, This is
Yeah,
like,
this isn't like fighting for rights. This is an agenda.
oh yeah, oh yeah. People mix it, and they mix it up, and then they think, oh, you're being hateful. You hate gays. I'm like, my gay friends agree with me. Okay. They're like, this is sick. I want nothing to do with it. I don't even use the flag anymore. They've abandoned their own symbols because it's been already there at the beginning. And I know a lot of people weren't, and that's fine. But then a lot of people woke up. Oh, that's a lie, right? But
Because of people like you, thank you. Because of the work of you and Dawn David and some people.
oh yeah, amazing work. I mean, like vital, really, vital. And it brings people out of the fear, because that's where they want us. They want us in fear. And if you're in fear, what happens? You're going to constrict, you're going to pull back, you're going to, your heart is going to depress, right? If you're in fear, you're going to be looking for when the next shoe is going to drop in your life. You're not looking for joy. You're not excited to get up in the day. You're waiting for the next freaking crappy thing that's going to happen to you, right? And you're on edge for waiting for it to come. And what you fear, you draw near. So you're pulling it even more, right? And energetically, it's like a vortex you're creating of yourself. So we're frothing here and making more problems rather than saying, okay, I'm gonna feel what I feel. I'm gonna see what's going on and plumb the depths of why I'm in fear and why I'm in pain or whatever. And anybody who's teaching right now, okay, in this time and era, that are focusing on the outside world only, they're deceivers. If they're not telling you to go within and practice and get yourself in a sense of discipline inside yourself, I wouldn't trust what they're doing. There's so many distractions right now. Yeah. And they want the distractions. They don't want you doing this, because when you're empowered and you realize you can change your status from general public to special presentation. And so actually I just dropped my video.
Your legal stuff?
The legal stuff with Rebecca Rodriguez, and she's an expert in equity law, and she's my teacher, and I'm taking her course. Yeah, very valuable. And I just did a successful presentment to CRA that was trying to, they're always trying to shut me down with something. They're always trying to like freak me out. I'm so used to this shit now. I'm like, when something happens, you get all scared and fear.
Yeah,
and yeah, I'll go through
callousness now.
I'll go through that a little bit. Like the fear will come up. That's normal. It's like, you know what? When it comes up, that's why you develop the second attention. That's why you work on your inner self, where you're not judging you. You're just watching you lovingly. You're like, oh, Amanda, oh, looks like you're scared. Okay, that's okay. It's okay. You're feeling scared. That's just temporary feeling. That's normal. It's okay. It'll fade, and then you'll get your head on, and then you'll sort it out, right? So, they do these things, but the empowerment part is the great nugget that we want here. And that can only come from doing the self-reflective work. And actually the courses I've been designing, the very first course, which I'm making a prerequisite for all my other courses, is designed to take that individual and put them inside themselves and ask themselves some serious questions about their needs, their wants, their desires, reflect upon their life. Where did they think they were going to be? Where are they now? Do they feel like they need to pivot into what their goals, and maybe their beliefs have changed. Maybe their values have completely changed, but they're still on this trajectory of their old values, because you don't know what you want, and you think you know what you want and you're after it, right? Like, but what if you change and you never really set back in yourself and go, oh, actually my values and my beliefs totally are different. I watched Amanda on her corrected cosmology video with Kelly Brogan, and I realized I don't live on a spinning ball and I'm not an ape, and evolution's a lie, and holy cow, and now my beliefs have changed, and I need to reevaluate my goals.
And it's going to take time. I mean,
it takes time
to restructure how you see everything, right? I mean, whether it's the ball earth or whatever, or evolution or anything. I mean, that's, because you hear it, like, it's so programmed. I mean, this is what you were taught your whole life. So it's just the way people think, we've been here for millions of years. You don't believe in science, Vinny, evolution? I'm like, no. Why are they, it's the dumbest thing to me when you really start looking at it, like we evolved from monkeys. Like, if evolution, like, wouldn't we all want wings? Wouldn't we all want to fly? Wouldn't we all, like,
I would,
yeah, like,
personally.
Why, it's dumb, and we know, people like us, we do the research, we know who created it, but it takes a while. So, even if they get this information, like me, like with 9/11, that was my thing, was 9/11. And it probably took me like maybe 2 years of processing. And like you said, depression and looking into things and trying to reevaluate the world and it probably took me like 2 years before, I could really, see a big change. Like, so I imagine it is hard for people, like even if a year or two before they are totally out of it, you know what I mean? That's the only point I'm saying. It might take a little while for some of these things, for people.
I remember 9/11, and I was scared. But what happened to me, because I was, very much practicing Tibetan Buddhism, like 24/7, I was all in on that. So I was meditating hours and hours a day at that point. And I started painting. That was my first love, was the visual arts. And I did a series of paintings that were all in red, white, and blue. And those aren't really colors I go for. And like my favorite color is green. I don't even usually do these colors. I found it odd. I'm like, okay, maybe it's a new series I'm doing. So I'm going to own it. And I started doing red, white, and blue stripes and dripping, where the paint would drip, and I would work with the dripping paint, and I would turn it, and I would create like really cool shapes and stuff. And when I looked back on some of my paintings, one was like an upside down American flag with all these drips on it. And another one was like like drips before it, and behind it was like a shadow, like you're trying to peer in and you're not sure what you're seeing. So like a smoke screen. So I did these series of paintings, and then 9/11 happened. And then I found out there were a lot of other intuitive artists that started painting similarly, where it's like they could feel that they were tapping into the plan. The plan was there for 9/11, and we knew we could intuitively, we were pulling it, and it was producing as art, right? And I went, whoa. So to me, I was like, oh, okay, this is not what they say it is for sure, because there's no way I would do that unless it was pre-planned, because there's no way I can tap into the intuition if it's not already in the mind. Yeah. So that woke me up as well. I think a lot of us woke up from 9/11 realizing what had gone on there. And then it was unstoppable. And then the next happened, where you're just like, I got to know now, because I wanted to know. And so I was like, that's a lie. Oh, okay. Whoa. Now
what else is a lie? That's what it was for me. And then it never ended.
It never ends. It never ends.
20 years later, still finding more.
And I know people judge me. I don't see. There's the thing. A lot of people don't do anything because they're cowardly, because they're afraid of the judgment. You have to be okay with being unliked, with being criticized, and with being judged, because when that comes at you, you have to then, it tests your inner faith. It tests your resolve of yourself. And if you're shakeable, it will shake you. And if it shakes you, then you got to do some inner work. So they're all gifts. They're all showing you where you're got holes in your energy, and that. So if you reframe your experiences that everything is benign and good, okay? Everything's benign and good, and everything's trying to show me something about myself, because I can't see myself. I'm inside of me. I can't, even in the mirror, it's a mirror. It's not, I can't see my face right now in my face. Like I can't do this.
Yeah.
I don't know what I look like. Okay. You know more about how I look than I look, because I can't really see me. Even pictures, those are all mirrors and lighting.
I know exactly what you're saying. I've thought about this too with myself. Yeah.
It's why if now think about God being the original of all, and then God wanting to know the self and dividing in two. And then now you have a mirror and you see the self, but only in a mirror. And then you got to make another mirror to see yourself in the double reflection. And that's like a little more accurate. And it just goes on from there. When I started studying sacred geometry and the blueprints of life and flower of life and seed of life and these things, it all starts to make sense, like how create more abstract in some ways, but really helping to understand how creation could have formed from an original source, right? Mm-hmm. Trying to know thyself. And we're all little agents of God, helping God know thyself. And we're just like little divisions. And we've gotten into this fractal of divisions. And it's a beautiful dance. It's like a beautiful, repeating, undulating dance. And we're all part of it. And we're sacred in that dance. And every single one of us is completely unique in it, and a unique expression of God. And there's no two the same. It doesn't even matter if you're twins, you're no two the same. And that's why you're so precious. And if you didn't exist, probably none of this would exist. because you're all holding the whole tapestry together. And so people are valuable. And I've said this before, even if you're just sitting on the couch all day long, you still actually have value just by existing. Your existence is the value. And that's why we don't want to extinguish that existence. And we want to keep that preciousness, because that soul force alone, just by existing and witnessing and just being a witness for God. So you see, your faith and beliefs have a huge impact on how you see your world and how, you know, you look at something happening to you. So you could say something like, oh, CRA sent me a bill for, you know, $80,000 or whatever. I could go, and which I did. I'm like, damn them evil mofos, them, and I'm the victim, they're bad, and they're wrong, and this is so unfair. This is just unfair. I need to correct them. So I go about setting to correct them. And that's where I got into controversy and creating drama and actually making mistakes. And I learned from mistakes. I'm like, oh, no. I caused this problem. And how? How can I own this? I filed my taxes like a dum-dum. I applied to be attached to them.
Yeah.
I invited this bill. That's on me. So what did I do? I rescissioned my taxes. Oops, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have filed taxes. I'm so dumb.
Rescinded? Nice.
I don't know what I was thinking. Oh no, I know what I was thinking. You wouldn't let me buy a house and I couldn't get a mortgage if I didn't have 2 years of taxes. So I had to file taxes so that I could get a mortgage. I see how this entrapped me, but it's still my fault. Ultimately, I still agreed to it. So now I'm not agreeing to it. And rescission is like, as if it never happened.
Yeah, I know. We call it like rescinding or rescind.
Same.
Yeah, at that time I thought that was a good contract, but things changed and I no longer want that contract. Yeah, I want to rescind and
because
we a new contract or something.
Well, we've sinned and we can repent for our sins. This is law. It's in the Bible.
Yes.
That's a book of law. It
is. The New Testament shows you how to act in court. I keep telling people.
It totally does. And when you get out of inner child trauma brain and you heal that inner child. So on my website, yummy.doctor, if people go and type in trauma release exercises, that's one of many, and I'll present even more options, like tapping is one, nice. TRE is another. My good friend who's taken a course with Beth Martins. Beth Martins, by the way, has excellent classes. If people are in that state of anxiety and depression and they need methods to sort of clear and heal the inner child, her courses, I would definitely look to Beth Martin's work. But this is getting close to your soul, close to yourself, close to chewing the pain body out, as Eckhart Tolle, I believe, talks about the pain body, and that we need to digest it and integrate the ego properly. So there's all of these phases that we never got guidance in throughout our adolescent phase, when we're supposed to be properly tendered into this knowledge. And then so then what happens, you have adults who are actually children. They're children inside adult bodies. This is the majority of the people we're seeing.
Yeah, they're like in denial. They won't accept, right?
They won't take self-responsibility, right? They won't grow up and say, my wounds are my own. Doesn't matter who caused it. Doesn't matter the unfairness. I'm not going to blame them anymore. I'm going to own it. It's okay. Yes, it's still, maybe there's still pain. Like, when someone really hurt you, then you might still be pain, but you can come to completion with it. Like, when I saw that thread, like I was 3, I was 4, whatever, I was like, oh my gosh, I said I was 6 and I was 25. And I realized, and I said, I'm one of the lucky ones, actually. I'm not going to list when, I was in Montreal and an old man caught a feel on the train. That to me, it's an abuse, but
that
bad. You know what I mean? Like there's all these little abuses that can come and can happen. In India, same thing. A guru was trying to rub himself on me, and I'm at the door of the train, because in India there's open doors in the trains. They were moving real fast, and he nearly pushed me out of the train doing it. Right, so that was almost my death. Wow. I had to push back so hard he went flying, and they arrested him at the next stop actually for it.
Oh, good.
So, women and men both are getting these sexual abuse things. And I found in that thread, by the way, there are no men. I'm like, I bet the men just don't speak. They don't talk about it.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I never had any sexual abuse done to me. Thank God. But I agree. I mean, I've met a few guys, and it was like usually when they're drunk and in a dark place, it'll come out.
Yes.
And, you know,
Or
being,
sweat lodges. Sweat lodges are real. I think men should
Yeah.
do sweat lodges with other men in the
Like,
dark and just get it out of them. Yeah.
I never thought of that. Yeah, that's what they used to do. Even the Romans, I think, you know.
Yeah, the Native American culture, you know, if you can find someone to guide you, it's very helpful, and set up a proper lodge. I would say it's really important, especially for men, I would say, in that particular context. But the point is, yeah, I had those things happen to me, and okay, but I don't hate those people. I don't even really think about it anymore. It used to come up, especially in intimate settings, like you remember it, like it's fresh, you know, it comes up, you're triggered, there's triggers. I've healed my triggers. And so, but it's a process where you feel the trigger and you own the trigger and you look at the trigger. But what are people doing now? They're projecting their triggers everywhere. They're like, they're non-grounded in what they're feeling, and they're not feeling like they can maybe handle it, maybe don't feel strong enough to actually own what they're feeling. And what do? They're offended. They're easily offended, because if you bring up a hurt, say you get triggered because I don't know, an example could be my mother used to get mad at me if I didn't clean my room or something. Okay, I'm just random example. And as an adult, now you're very fastidious about your room. You're very freaked out if your room's out because you might get in trouble. So you're still in that baby brain, that child brain, right? I don't want to get in trouble. I don't like that. It doesn't feel good, right? And say you had a really busy work day or something and you let your room, like, you know, go to mess. And say your spouse came in and judged that, said, oh my God, what, you know, and maybe they're not even judging you. They were just saying, whoa, you know, noticing.
Yeah,
like,
just I'm surprised. Yeah.
I'm surprised you're usually so fastidious.
And you
You know?
right away get triggered back to the trauma of the past.
Yes, and now you get triggered. And guess what happens? Defensiveness. Oh, well, I had a busy week. How dare you? Like, you know, you didn't help me. And then and then they're gonna look for something to judge them on, right? That's someone who's in their trauma, they haven't resolved their triggers, and they're frenetic inside their body enough that if it's there and they don't like that feeling, they don't want it in their body, they want to put it and project it onto somebody else. And that's what they do. We're seeing this literally everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
You see a lot.
The easily offended need to know if they are easily offended, that's on them. That they haven't done the work. They haven't done the inner work at all. So as soon as you feel I'm offended, stop yourself and go, whoa, girl, you know, why do I feel offended? What's that about? And you've got work to do. So even if you write a note, okay, later in meditation, look at why I got what the trigger's about, blah, 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 and stop yourself from putting it on somebody else, you know. And if you do, rescind it, apologize, say later, go, you know what? I apologize. That hurt me because I haven't dealt with my pain from my past. And that reminded me that I feel like a failure all the time, or whatever the emotion is that's associated with picking up your room, you know, and you just reminded me of this core wound because our parents give us these wounds for us to heal, right? It's part of the contract. And we're, you know, I'm trying, but, you know, I'm struggling, and thank you for listening to me. And, you know, next time I'll try to communicate what I'm feeling in I statements, right? Like right now I feel triggered. So I am going to go take some time. I'm going to go run a bath and I'm going to deal with my triggers. I love you. It's not your fault, but I'm going to walk away now and I'm going to go deal with this, right? That would be the adult way to deal with a trigger rather than blast it on that individual. But that takes conscious awareness. And a lot of people haven't done the conscious awareness work on themselves to even catch themselves when they're in a trigger phase, right? So then I actually wrote an article recently on my Substack about jealousy and where that comes from emotionally and all this sort of stuff, and the clinging, and really it comes down to survival. And all of the emotions ultimately come down to the base chakra, to survival needs, you know, that
makes sense.
If you feel like you're going to die because you don't have the thing, you're going to do whatever it takes to get the thing. right?
Yeah, that's gonna be the overwhelming
Drive.
importance, is survive.
Yeah.
But
So this is what I see with the offended. And so if someone does that, I say, oh, it's called projection, and it's okay. You're hurt inside, but you haven't done the work to resolve it. And that's why I'm saying this is the time, if people haven't, to do the inner job. That's their number one job. It will serve their children, it will serve their family unit, their communities. You know, people want to affect change, then you do you.
yeah, you start with you and then your family.
Because otherwise, you know, and I'm not saying this is particularly easy. I'm not brushing it off either. Like, oh, just do it. Whatever. It's work. It is work, but it's worthy work. It's rewarding work. There are gains to do it because
This
your
is
relationships
rewarding.
will
Yeah.
be more loving, right? Like your relationships will bring you more joy rather than trauma or further trauma, because you do end up re-traumatizing your wound. You keep ripping open the wound every time you're offended by the same thing. And then what happens is you rewrite the story every time you go through the trauma again and again. You broken telephone yourself.
You just reminded me, there was something I seen not that long ago. It was like these people that had these horrible things happen to them, and they did like a play, and they would, like what you're saying, like you don't hide from what the trauma, you go right at it. And they would have all these actors, and they all would like play, you know, replay these horrible trauma things, and it actually, all of them felt better and were able to move on. Or it was easier to move on, you know. To me, it is like, again, being able to talk to someone seems like the really important part, you know. The people that can't get it out is maybe, you know, the ones that are getting to that point where they kill themselves because they never get a chance, or they haven't figured out maybe. But I really feel like it is talking. If we could all talk and have love for each other, you know, that would be the start, you know.
Well, yeah, and if the trauma or whatever's happened to their inner child, if that happened when they were age 7 for girls, age 8 for boys, like post that, then they can logically have talk therapy or express and figure something out cognitively, because they had the cognitive logical reasoning skills.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yep. So
but if
other than
before that, yeah, if the trauma happened before that, the talk therapy usually won't do too much. What you did allude to, where people are reliving the visuals or the emotion of the trauma, but then rewriting the ending, that's what people need to do if the trauma was earlier. Then they have done like VR headsets with so what happens is a computer program where you write what happened. Doesn't even matter if it's 100% accurate.
wow. Yeah.
So say you were sexually abused, you know, at a young age, the program would have aspects in the story where, you know, it's showing you after the sexual abuse. For example, I don't think showing it's really appropriate, but similar sort of feeling, getting you into the feeling of it, but then rewriting the ending or closing the ending where there's justice or you resolved some aspect. And it because our imaginations are so strong. They've done MRIs where we're experiencing something physically or imagining we're experiencing something physically, and the brain lights up identically. And that's
It's like, yeah, same
so
thing.
there's no difference between the imagination and the reality when it comes to a lot of these memories. So the way it lights up the brain and thinking it's more real. And that's why AI and the whole virtual reality thing is actually can be a weapon and very dangerous, right? But it also can be used as a tool to like complete that, like polar bears, right? I've told that story about the polar bear getting the helicopter's chasing it, it's running, they're going to dart it because they do all the checks and check the teeth and the stuff, right? But any animal who still has their instincts, when they come out of a trauma, they shake it off physically. They like literally physically shiver the trauma out, and we have lost that mechanism. So all the little micro traumas or big traumas, we hold. We're told not to be scared, don't shiver. We tell our children if they're scared not to shiver. We try to stop them from shivering. They're naturally trying to shake off something that scares them and complete it and be done with it. You see this with animals all the time. Very scared, very whatever.
Yeah.
Done, they don't think about it again. They're not going, oh, that was a really, you know, tough, hard time.
I think a shell shock too with the military, right? Those people always like shaking, like stuff shaking, right? The shell shock.
Yes. And they're trying to heal. That's a healing mechanism. That's why the trauma release exercises are so powerful, because you actually put yourself into the shaking, the tremors. You exhaust certain muscles to make yourself go into natural sort of vacillation of muscles. And while you're laying there doing this, your mind will go all kinds of places. Fascinating what happens. And I actually taught this as a workshop at Soulshine Festival that I go to every year locally here. And the next day, a lot of them came to me and said, thanked me, but said they had the most wicked, wild dreams that night about the thing that they were traumatized with. And they felt like it was left their body. Then when they woke up in the morning, it would just evaporate. It was done. They never even, it's not even
like that negative energy was able to leave.
they could close the open loop, and the wound now can heal because they're done with the lesson. They did the work, they integrated it, right? And now that allows for the emotional charge that's connected to release. Now they're not going to be triggered. They won't be triggered by that. They'll still remember their story, or they'll still, like I did, right? Like I still remember what happened when I was 25. I know what happened, but there's no charge. There's no emotional charge like anger or rage.
Yeah, you were able to get that
neutral.
out.
Yeah, you neutralize it. Yeah. Very, very powerful and very important. And this is the stuff, people. This is you're worried about depression, anxiety, all the problems that come along with that. This is the way out. This is the work. And it's not even really that difficult. And you don't even have to be like, have a PhD and like be trained in it. You just need to go and shake it off, like legitimately shake it out of your body. Right. And there's ecstatic dances where, you'll shake. And I think a lot of people like trance music for this reason, like they're gravitating that industry because it helps them actually get out of their trauma bodies. So everyone's walking around with unresolved trauma, projecting it on other people, walking around as the victim, then self-sabotaging. And then why do you think we're depressed? Okay, like eating like one know about ADD. They literally will give suckers, okay, red food dye suckers as rewards to children. These are teachers giving it to children. Yes. And then they wonder why they can't sit still. They give them sugar and food dye that makes their nervous systems go crazy. And now they want to give them a drug so that they sit down and shut up and listen to your retarded political, social engineering freaking lesson about, teaching them how to touch themselves or talk, bringing homework home where they talk to their fathers about their penis, like sick stuff that they're doing. And I don't even go to the library anymore. You know what? We're done. We're done with the library.
In the library?
The books are shit. The books are conditioning garbage. I don't even want my daughter's eyeballs to glance at the last time we were in there, it was like a whole like rainbow flag section of groomer books to have front and center. Wow. I'm like, how is this acceptable? So we don't even go. I just buy books and original books. I learned this the other day, by the way. They're rewriting history, of course, because they're trying to, they gatekeep all the knowledge. But what they're doing is they take the books, they're transcribed into e-format online, and then they quietly change the information inside the ebook. And then when you go to order the book in a hard copy, because you're like, I want a hard copy because this world's all unstable or whatever. Well, you're getting an ebook copy of it. You're not getting the original anymore. And I found out they're doing this. So we're not even getting real. So old books are becoming more and more valuable. This is also why the price of them, like I wanted to order a book the other day, $200 for like a thin little book, right? They don't want you to have it. So like if people can, like seed saving, we're saving our history. People need to hold on to their original books as much as possible and preserve that material and not trust the printouts they're getting, and inquire when they're going to buy a book, where's the source and how can I guarantee that this is the original print of the book. But it's sick to me. And so even like this is Pride Month. Who gets a month? Who's getting a month of anything? Father's Day a day, Mother's Day a day, Christmas like a couple of days, maybe we'll give it a week with Boxing Day or whatever, whatever's in there. Like, a month, really, for a minority group? Where's heterosexual month? Like, I don't see any celebration of a normal family unit, like, it's like, it's old, it's trend, they make it trendy. This is a sick trend, and it will go, it will end, because people aren't having it. They're being marginalized, and ironically, they're being excluded. Like, the majority is being excluded to pander to a minority that is traumatized and hasn't done the inner work. And that's why they mutilate themselves. And I mean, the cutting, the I'm now a boy or I'm now a girl, the blue hair, the weird piercings, the tats all over the body, the self-mutilation has many forms. And this is self-deprecation. This is they're hating themselves on themselves. And they warped it into thinking they're
they made it into like, that's cool. Yeah. Look,
or that they feel they're trusting a feeling that they haven't investigated. So the dysmorphic feeling, right? Because people who have then gone through transition, who have the dysmorphic feeling, the dysmorphic feeling doesn't go away, or it goes away temporarily because they have a placebo effect in their head that it will go away. Guess what? It comes back. And it's because it has nothing to do with that. It's because it's unresolved trauma. And most of these people have been abused, sexually abused as children.
Yep.
And might have amnesia even. A lot of them don't even realize until they go through hypnotic, sessions.
They blocked it off. The trauma too much for some, they're able to block it out.
Well, yeah, as a survival mechanism. But guess what? If you block out part of your consciousness, your subconscious mind will run you. It will rule you. It will rule your feelings, your decisions, all of the things you think you know or think about is your subconscious programmed to pulsatile into your conscious mind. And that's why they love the television. They use hypnotic techniques. Apparently there was Taylor Swift concert recently, and all these teens were reporting amnesia after the show. Well, they're using hypnotic techniques.
Those flashing lights and everything too, right? Cause epilepsy and all types of issues.
Well, but they like I said, they know how to use this technology. They know how to our psychology.
Yeah, it seems like they were perfect. They already had the stuff protected, like World War II, with the Germans and Americans. Everybody was doing these experiments. It's probably like 70 years of them knowing all this stuff. And then
I'd say older. I'd say back to Egyptian times. They probably knew.
Oh yeah.
And then what they did is they stole all the Library of Alexandria, burnt whatever they didn't want out there, and put that in the Vatican. So they have all the proper history and knowledge, and so the Vatican gatekeeps true knowledge, lies to you in your face, and they're a bunch of pedophiles on top of it, and they want to come out. The monsters want to walk among us. This is the takeover of the flag. Okay, they want recognition too, because that's what they are. They're monsters, right? So they want us to love monsters. Look at all the propaganda for children about loving monsters. That the Beauty and the Beast story, right? Like, oh, the monster didn't know. They're okay. Love them anyway. Love the monster.
That's their philosophy, right? It's Aleister Crowley. Do what thou wilt. It's just a learning lesson.
Hedonism.
You rape a little kid. You killed someone. A learning lesson. You shouldn't be punished for that.
Yes. Oh yeah. It's totally inversion. It's 100% inversion. And the thing that stresses me is when the innocent are being used like this.
Yeah.
They haven't been given proper.
The elderly, the children. I mean, like you said, them going after children and the elderly. That upsets me a lot.
And I get, and so that's where it can get us upset, and then that can get us frenetic, and that can get our cortisol levels up, and that could get our lifestyle factors low, and that can put us in depression. Just so we have to be careful of what we allow to really come into our bodies, and how we feel and how we manage our feelings. And that's all an inside job. And now I'm trying as much. So it's a delicate balance. It's like, we have to know what's going on. So we have to look at the darkness. We have to like I said, you have to pick it up to throw it away. You can't do the new age thing where you just ignore it and pretend it goes away and love and light it all away. It's not gonna, it's the worst. When you just ignore the dark, it's like a snake in the grass. It's gonna come and bite you. You wanna know where the snake is at all times. So it's a balance between knowing what's going on, understanding the truth of the situation, and at the same time, focusing on solutions, remedies, corrections, due diligence of the self, love, various forms of integrating your trauma. Like this is the work. This is where we are now. If people aren't doing this now, we're not going to get out of it, because we are continuing to hold the vision of the demons by pandering to what we think is goodness, because they're tricking us to that this is good, that we're poor, this poor trans child, we just want to help them, right? Yeah, we just want to help them because they're stuck in the wrong body, so we'll help them get out of the body. They don't, these counselors and teachers and doctors, they are indoctrinated themselves and probably traumatized themselves, and they are probably also projecting and wanting to change the situation so they feel better. So it's completely selfish, and whatever they get out of it, because they get, this is the thing, this is the virtue signaling thing, right? They do it because they feel good. They're not doing it really for you. They're doing it so they feel they can pat themselves on the back saying, I'm a good person, see? Because deep down they feel like shit. Deep down they feel like they're not a good person. Deep down they feel they have no worth. So the ego comes up, says, damn it, I'm gonna have worth. So I'm gonna do whatever it takes so that I have the illusion of feeling like a good person. And it's a lie. And so now, can you imagine doing that for like your life? And now you wake up and you realize that you have put a hand to hurt people when you had the intention of otherwise. The level of forgiveness you have to now pull into your life, and the work that is paramount, and it's huge. And a lot of people won't be able to,
too much for them.
Yeah, I think it's come, I feel there is a point of no return in some ways in consciousness. If there's too much trauma, there's too many walls built up.
It definitely seems the older is harder, right? I mean, it's probably easy to reach younger people with this type of information, I would imagine, right?
They're more flexible. Yeah.
And the more I think of, you think you know it all, where a child might not.
It never ends. It
doesn't. I could live to 200 and I'd still be learning.
We have the yin and yang. We have this dance.
Dualism,
and we judge death as well. We judge what we don't know, where we fear what we don't know. But I know from the studies and the inner experiences I have that I know we're eternal. I don't fear that. I mean, I fear
I agree.
of it. I fear the change of it. I fear what others, my daughter and like other people, what they would lose. But in and of itself, I don't feel death is real per se. It's just a transmutation or a change, and we couldn't possibly die, because it just doesn't. If you work the logic all the way through, it doesn't make sense. And so here's what's hard about like death, right? So we're saying it's wrong to commit suicide. It's wrong to end your life in that way. And I believe it is. And I believe it's very damaging to the soul to take your own life. And I would never do that, because I used to read all these texts about stuff that they were talking about spiritual matters, and that when you take that God is in design of your life and death. And if you intervene, your ego intervenes in your life and death, there's repercussions that you have to deal with later. And I'm like not interested in more trouble. Okay. So I'm going to take that off the table as a possibility.
Well, to think about it, I mean, God, this is the gift he gives you. And if you're like, well, you gave me this and I hated it, I killed myself, like that would be pretty insulting, I would imagine. I mean,
it is
saying you hated this so much.
Yeah.
That, you'd rather be dead than living this creation.
Yeah.
I'd be insulted.
Well, yeah, you'd be insulted. But I think that what I've learned now is that we've caused this. It's really nobody's fault. We've created whatever we've created here by our own ignorance, right? Same thing with law, right? We put ourselves into the general public, which is a slavery system. We've agreed to be slaves. And then we complain about
Yeah.
when the slave masters want to be more heavy-handed with us and change their rules, as slave masters will do, because it's their whim. Then we
Yeah.
get mad and we protest against them, say, well, we don't like the conditions of our cage. Please stop hurting us this way. Just hurt us a different way, you know?
Yeah.
That's why I'm so torn with protests. Like, again, it's like a fine line where, yeah, we can affect change, and there are some local council members that are buffoons, and we should really be in their faces and make sure that they don't get away with stuff. And so I see that on a local level. We do need to actually take real action, not just yell and scream and sign a petition. I mean, call them and talk to them, show up and speak with them, like go to council meetings and where you're in their faces about it, where they're not thinking they can get away with it. I think that's actual action that can be beneficial, but the actual protesting against the government thing is ridiculous, because unless you realize you're standing, all you're doing is rattling your cage.
Yeah.
You know?
Me, I've been trying to, with the law, you probably learning about this stuff too. I'm trying to be all about the private, understanding the difference between public and private law. And like you were saying, these are all public things. So if they, you know, you sign up for it, you're gonna, you know, you're asking your master to change, you know, like you said, rearrange my cage or whatever. You're asking for permission. I don't want nothing to do with the public. I want to be all private, and you know, there's as little as I can be in the public. And for the people that are studying law, I'm sure they understand what we're talking about. And I think that's what you're getting into too, right? Where you're creating, you're changing your status. So they're not looking at you as just a regular, you know, slave. Oh, this person isn't a slave. Yeah, these are great things. I hope maybe on the next show or something I could learn more about the law and where you're going with the law stuff. Because I even told you the last show, to me, health and law are like the two things. Like health, obviously, you know, if you're dead, nothing matters. So obviously being healthy is the most important. But to me, law is one of those ways, the non-violent way, a way to fight back and figure out how the matrix is working and how to operate it. Living trust or evocable trust, that's another big thing. I don't know if you've got into like creating a trust account to take out of their stuff so it can't be taxed, so they can't come after it. Yeah, these are all things I'm big into. So it's awesome to hear that you're getting into this too. What was that woman's name again that you were saying that you're working with?
Rebecca Rodriguez.
Rebecca Rodriguez. I don't think I know her.
Yeah, she's not known. She's quite private, and but she's recently felt that she has to you know, speak. So
yeah, I will definitely check that out. I'm very interested in this stuff.
Yeah, me too. And obviously, like, I've dabbled in it for a long time. I mean, back when I was doing Accepted for Values, and I recently found out, actually, she told me that over the last year, they reject all Accepted for Values now, so they're not working anymore. And I think because we're actually getting to the correct method, because we have to teach the administrators the method. So here in Canada, I'm teaching the Postmaster General and all the administrators that I'm sending these notices to how to properly discharge the debt that I've accrued by my error. So I'm repenting my sins, and I'm asking for forgiveness, and I'm accepting 100% everything that they're saying. I'm not even changing jurisdiction. I accept their jurisdiction and everything. So it's a very different, it's not conditional acceptance.
Yeah, we're not fighting. We're not
fighting.
having, there's no controversy. There's
None.
Yes,
None.
it's key.
It is key. And because otherwise, and what I've been doing all along, not realizing it, as I've been acting to them as double-minded. So I've been.
Me too.
I didn't know, we're learning,
Yeah.
but like I created controversy by arguing, you know, and I shouldn't have done that. So then I asked for forgiveness. I didn't mean to cause controversy. I'm going to, even if it's unfair, I mean, that's where it still kind of gets me, like, this isn't right. I didn't,
Yeah.
they made this shit up. Like, I don't owe all this HST. I don't even run my business in Canada. I shouldn't have to pay, you know, that's $68,000, whatever the hell they sent me, you know, bill for HST. I don't collect it beyond whatever they said, 30,000, or it doesn't even matter. That's the public.
But like you said, it's great. It goes like with everything else we've been talking about with the just accepting the depression or the negative charges
Yes.
or whatever the court's saying,
Doesn't matter,
instead of getting angry and fighting against these demons who have all the power, you accept it and you learn what you're dealing with, and you find a way to operate and discharge and
Yeah.
basically just move on, be done with it, handle it, don't hide from it, don't get angry, right? It's like everything we've been talking about. And this seems no different, the courts, you
And
know.
it is yours. It is yours to own. That mistake that you think they did, that unfairness that they did, somehow that's inside of you. We're a holographic projection. Everything that exists is inside of you. So you can own that too. You say, yep, I did an unfairness to myself. I'm the one who did it to me. And so I'm sorry I did that to me. I'm sorry that you got involved in the thing that I did to me. And thank you for showing me the error of my ways. That is the most humble position you can
It is. And they love it. I go in, I'm always like, I'm an idiot. I'm just like, I say all these things. I'm an idiot. I'm sorry. And they laugh and it works for me, you know? Like, again, instead of that energy of, I'm angry, you're the enemy, I'm in a war, I want to win, this isn't right. It's that energy and the whole atmosphere, you know, just like if you're around someone who's angry, you right away get defensive and you put up a wall. There's no, you're not going to be able to communicate. We're not going to be able to get along when we're like that. We have to, like you said, just accept what we're in and try to have some love and compassion and be able to talk to others. Is where I've been getting at. I spent the first bunch of years getting beat up and beat up by the cops, then throwing my phones and ripping me out of my car, going to court, causing the scene there, and everybody's like, this maniac, you know. And it took me a while to realize that's not the right way. And you know, all this stuff seems like full circle again, the circle you said, and it all matches. You know, we have to be able to accept things. We can't live in denial. We can't live in fear and anger. We have to live in love and acceptance, and then just figure out the best way to deal with these things, right? Even the law.
And I understand boundaries. Like I've had an issue with boundaries my whole life, and I didn't realize it's because I had self-worth issues. And because if you don't have self-worth, you don't have healthy boundaries, because you don't believe you deserve boundaries. And so you let people walk all over you. And then when people get too close, you push them away, you know, because there's love coming your way. You feel that you don't deserve love. You usually have fast relationships, like really quick relationships, because you trust people you don't know yet. You just, you know, unload on them, or you know, so you'll see people come in and out of relationships really fast when they're acting like that, when they don't have self-worth. And that can lead to depression because you keep destroying your own life. You don't realize that you're doing that because the core belief is that you're not worthy of love, wealth, you know, abundance, whatever it is that you think you want or think that would feel great. You sabotage it, and people need to be aware of this inside, because that's part of the trauma brain. And also if you ever felt unloved by your own parents, right, or rejected, that's very fundamental inside of you. And so you become one of the parents inside your own mind. So your inner thoughts are usually very judgy and very negative. You know, like how many times have you made a mistake and then inside your head you're like, stupid, you're so stupid, and you start you know, saying bad things about yourself, like stupid idiot, why do you do that, stupid idiot? Or you know, your negative self-talk needs to be addressed. And so I sometimes I'll catch myself and go, yeah, it was dumb. You're so dumb. Why are you so ridiculous? But then I go, oh, you're so ridiculous. And I'll laugh. You're so silly. You silly goose. You know, like this. Like, it's a child's going to make mistakes. That's my inner child making a mistake. And now I'm going to punish my inner child because she's learning. That's so ridiculous. No. What do I do with my own child? Like, you made a mistake. Yeah, maybe we're upset right now because it had repercussions. Okay, we'll deal with it though. But it's okay. It's okay to be wrong. It's okay you made a mistake. It's okay you did that. Okay, now we make amends. We look at how can we make amends for our mistakes? How can we ask for the forgiveness of our sins? And this is the humble. This is what we need to be, where we need to come from. Yeah. And you know, and then the boundaries come in place where we we deserve to say no to something that would hurt us. It's all right that we don't have to accept everything. And it's okay that people are putting their judgments and crap and whatever on you. They're just trying to use you as the clean mirror that you are to see themselves. This has been my whole life. I always thought people just hated me. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? And then what would happen is I'm like, well, maybe I'm not giving enough. Maybe I'm not being nice enough. Maybe I'm not being this enough. And I would change the way I was behaving so they would like me. How much peer pressure do we see in this world, right?
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Well said, yeah.
Then you lose yourself. Then what happens? Depression. You lost yourself. Then what happens? I don't feel right in my body. Let's cut off my parts. Oh, still feel like crap. Oops. Yeah. So this is all because of the same patterns we keep reliving over and over again. And that's why I'm saying this work is really crucial, and to teach our children this, how to forgive themselves, how to make amends when they make a mistake, and that it's okay. This is how we learn, this is how we grow. And hopefully we can avoid the fatal mistakes because we learned them young enough. So I let my daughter climb trees and, fall down and
That's how I am with my daughter, which is totally different than her mother, who's very protective. And I remember the last time I had her, she did something and she got hurt, and she was like, why didn't you tell, why'd you, I said, Vienne, I have to let you be. Like, if that's how it is, everything's dangerous.
Yeah.
I can't let you cut your food. You could cut yourself. So let me cut all your food for you. Like, this is life. There's danger in it. You know what I mean? Like, this is how you learn. It is through, mistakes and getting hurt and picking yourself back up. I mean, all I'm going to do is tell you the truth. But at the end of the day, it's your decision. We all know you can't control anyone, even your own kids. They're their own spirit, personality. Usually when you try to control, what happens? You get the opposite. You get rebellion.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't want to do that. So I'm all just about, again, education, just the truth, and being able to communicate is what I keep hoping is going to help. Like, you don't have to hide nothing. You can talk to me, because I'm not going to judge and hate on you and punish you, and that's how I am with my daughter.
Yeah, I even say, even if I make a mistake and I did freak out, okay, say I had a bad, I'm tired, I'm not feeling good. Okay, there's all kinds of things that you can't control. You're not in a good place. Okay, something happens. You got triggered. It happens. Okay, we're not perfect. It happens. And so if I've done something where I'm just bleh, then at least what you do is you own it. And then so through those experiences, you teach your children, look, I apologize. I was out of my alignment and I reacted, and that was a mistake. And I'm asking you for forgiveness for my mistake. And let's do better next time. Let's try it. Maybe I'll do this next time or whatever. So anytime we make a mistake with our kids, if we just own it and with them present, it depends on the age, of course, but where they're comfortable, but at least saying sorry if they learn by what you do, by your actions. And I see my daughter all the time. If she does makes a mistake now, she just says, oh, oops, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I'm like, oh, good. What do you need? And so it's not a drama. It doesn't become this.
And doing it at the young age, that'll definitely make it a lot easier for them where it just becomes natural. And as opposed to, someone who's 20, 30, 40, who lived that problem. And then you have to try to, it's a lot harder down the line. So it is so important that we do it with the kids right away, like what you're doing. I mean, I imagine it's going to be a lot easier than avoiding it. And then at 18, 19, 20, and they have all these problems, and then you're trying to.
See, I trust her now, because I now that she knows this, when she goes out in the world and does things, I know she has sense with her.
So you trust her.
I know, because I let her, when we put her in ice skating and she'd fall, and oh my gosh, look, it's not easy to watch your children go
get hurt. Yeah.
You have to be strong inside, and you have to let them falter and know that then they know you're there for them, that they're not alone in it. But like, it does serve them in the long run for so many reasons. Like, there was one guy on TikTok, a father walks into his son's room. His son is paraplegic, and he's trying to lift himself out of his wheelchair onto his bed, but he's stuck. So he's come across an issue. And so he walks in right mid stuckness, right? Where the child is stuck. Now, a parent would go, oh no, oh, I'll help you. And I help him up. That's not what the father did. He said, oh, I'm here, I'm supporting you, but I think you've got this. Here, I'm going to give you a suggestion. Just push your chair back like half an inch. Just push it back a tiny bit. And that's what the boy did. And then now you got it. Now he had the leverage to lift himself onto the bed himself. You should have seen his face at the end of it. This is like a 5-year-old, 6-year-old boy. He's beaming ear to ear. He's so proud of himself.
That he did it himself. Yeah.
So that's wiring in him a wonderful sensation that when he achieves something in his life, he will feel the own reward. He's his own reward. You don't need an external reward. He's got it. What a beautiful teaching, right? But the dad could have just lifted him up, and there would have been no lesson there, right?
Yeah.
He could do it his whole life, and probably will be involved in his whole life.
Then he would learn that he's a victim.
He would learn he's a
Program
victim.
that you're a victim and you need help.
That's right. And same thing with, they did studies on playgrounds. You know, they make playgrounds so safe. This safety thing, oh, I want it, just makes me so with that they want to keep. It's the same thing as the government. They want to keep us safe. Well, I'm not your child. See, this is the dynamic. The government as the parent. The children are stupid, clearly, because they're general public. They don't even know their special status. They keep paying with money. It's stupid, right? They're creating more debt. They're stupid. They need us. They're dumb. We need to protect them. So it's like the bad parent abusing them and palliating them and lifting them on the bed, not letting us do it ourselves. That's what that exactly mirror role is. And we're the sovereign is like, no, I got this. I know how to pick myself up. I've learned how to achieve something without necessary. I know how to ask for help properly, you know, if I need actual help. Like I know how to, or I know my limitations, right? But they had these safety playgrounds. They're so super safe, right? And that's like the government safety. And they're the most dangerous playgrounds because like actually my child dented her head on one of those stupid playgrounds. Her perfect head. I carried her for 3 months to give birth to her, and she had this most perfect head. And I was so pissed. She dented her head on this stupid playground. But the playgrounds that are the safest are the ones you wouldn't think. They did studies on these playgrounds that were just like wood and brick and just tossed like just it looked chaotic. It was like a rope on a tree that they could actually get onto. They could have run into a tree, climbing really high, like super high, and those were the safest playgrounds. The children learned their boundaries and limitations. They learned how to balance. They learned how to get help when they needed they got too high and they needed guidance. They learned all these amazing skill sets to not then later in life be prey to extreme harm that could lead to death. So they were saying that children need boundaries, they need rules and lessons and these things, but they need the freedom to make the mistake in a safe enough setting where it's not going to lead to something so traumatizing as the end of their life, right? So falling down and bruising themselves and learning their bodies and the balancing and stuff. So like even when my daughter was skating at the beginning, she'd always fall down. Then guess what? She found her legs, and then she grew and her fulcrum changed. So then she had to do it again because now her body's different. She had to learn again anew, you know, how to stand on skates a little bit better. And then, but that took 2 seconds. It's like a little bit of balance and she's right there. So she can correct herself now as she goes. And this is a flexible child that will not be prone to, you know, severe problems later in life. She'll know how to handle things in her life, and she won't be victim to the government. She knows about her birth certificate bond. I told her that money is debt. So paying a debt with a debt is actually technically illegal. And when you do that, you're contributing to the debt and you're actually to your own slavery, because you continue to put the system into debt. Where is the debt going to be resolved? Well, they're going to sell you and sell our resources to other countries to balance the debt, which is what we're seeing. We have infiltration of China, infiltration of other countries because of the debt that we keep making ourselves and then blaming the government on. You know, it's for lack of it.
The best one I read was that Economic Hitman. John Perkins, that book.
Mm.
It was mostly talking about South America, but yeah, it explained how they went and took over all the resources through the debt, you know. Oh, we're gonna dump all this money into you, you know. Yeah, that's how they get you through the debt. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, your daughter's very lucky to have you. Me, unfortunately, because of my ex, and she has, you know, most of the power. So it's not as easy for me. Anything that if I say money isn't real to my daughter, or you're not on a ball or something like that, I'm not even gonna fight. I'm gonna have to wait, I guess, till she's older.
Yeah.
And she's a little bit away from her mom's control, and then hopefully I could do what you're doing. So.
And also I say to people who are in this sort of situation where they don't feel that they can communicate honestly with their own children, lest they, because of programming or brainwashing by another parent who's asleep and deeply programmed, that you can communicate, you're very intimately connected genetically for one to your child, but also on an energy level, there's no space and no time. Okay, this is our perceptions of depth and what's real and what's solid and all of this. We understand it's all vibrational energy, right? So that means we can affect whatever we think is out there from inside. And so I have an exercise that I would teach when I was, teaching Reiki and energy work with people, that if they have a conflict or they have an issue with an individual and that individual will not speak with them, or they feel they can't communicate on the outside with them, communicate on the inside with them. So imagine that you walk into a room, decorate it how you want. And by the way, some children need to be taught how to visualize. My child did not know how to naturally visualize. I had to train her how to visualize. And once I taught her how to visualize, she knows how to visualize now. So I found that interesting because I assumed, because I can visualize, that I just everyone can do it, but not everyone is visual. But I trained her to visualize. Now she knows how to do it. So, so visualize that you're walking into a room with the person you want to talk to, and then you're sitting down in a chair. And now first you ask permission to their soul, may I communicate with you? And if you feel that it's yes or a positive, then go ahead. If you get an X or you get a, then you have to honor that. I have had that only a couple of times, but usually it's a yes. And then you can just pretend in that scenario, you're saying everything you want to say to them. You're saying all the things. I love you, or I'm mad at you, or I didn't like this. Doesn't matter. It can be messy, it can be pretty, doesn't matter. And then imagine what they say back to you. So imagine you're having a conversation and then you respond, and you just keep doing this until you feel clear and you communicate. And I've had feedback.
Yeah, I like that.
Blow your mind that people, so in one case of a daughter and father, they weren't getting along, and she was very distraught about it. And so she did this with her father. She actually decided to do it in the shower. She felt like water was helping her. So she did this procedure in the shower, and she literally dried off from the shower, got dressed, went downstairs, and he approached her and gave her a huge hug and said, I'm sorry, and kissed her, kissed her cheeks.
Yeah.
And she was just blown away, by it. He owned the thing, he was being very belligerent. You didn't want to hear it. He didn't want to talk about it. He didn't care. He was like this, dismissive. And now he did, he cared. Right. So there's more ways to affect our reality through the inside than the outside. And the outside way is the messy way.
Oh, well said. Yeah, I didn't think about that angle. Yeah.
So you can communicate with her. You can do teachings with her. You can send her all the teachings of the realm to her in your mind, these sorts of things.
I like that. Yeah.
So you don't feel frustrated as well. And then you're also clearing if nothing else, if nothing more, that you're feeling good, that you have taken action, that you have done your due diligence as a parent to do your best for your child, that lessens the harm that might happen if you got into a fight with your ex and all that kind of thing. And she's going to get more heavy-handed because you're the lunatic who thinks the earth is flat, and that's she's locked into the subconscious programming. So she's not consciously aware. So these are people running on programs. I think this is what a lot of people in the truth community call NPCs. So NPCs are those who are running their subconscious program. They're not consciously aware of what's going on, right?
Yeah.
But someone awake is consciously aware. That means they pour the waters of consciousness upon the things that they do. They're watching themselves as a witness, and they're, reflecting on their behavior often, and trying to figure themselves out and the world they're in, and question things, and apply critical thinking and these sorts of things, because you have to at that point, in order to move forward. Yeah, and one thing I just wanted to tie back with the diet, because I didn't feel like I completed that. I have come into a real place of acceptance with all things. Okay, we have to, in order to affect change, like I said, we have to accept. So I accept that there's every different diet for any different person. So each individual could have a unique diet, and it's correct for them. So there's no wrong diet and there's no right diet per se, or they're all right diets if you've found it for yourself. Do you know what I'm saying? Because there's examples that you can see on both ends of the spectrum. You can see, for example, an emaciated vegan. You can see a vegan who's a weightlifter and they're strong and vital. So those two people, if you look at their lifestyles, might have completely different lifestyles, other involved factors, digestive concerns, metabolic concerns, stress level. So we can't really judge what people need in that way. I don't agree with, say, like the Eskimo diet, for example, right? Where blubber and that sort of, look at the conditions people are living in there. I mean, that's a hard life.
Yeah, to me, that's like survival. Like it's
survival. If they didn't have that, that struggle, they would eat different. If they could grow other food there.
Yeah, like you wouldn't want a mango or a plum.
Yes, right. But and I'm not saying that diet's necessarily healthy either, because they usually lose their teeth, and they age quite rapidly. They're exposed to a lot of sun, so maybe sun damage, but the diet isn't correcting their sun damage, so they age more rapidly. So one can argue, oh, well, there's all these different diets. Now, it's just the way that the conditions that they're facing and how they're trying to survive. So that's one aspect of diet, right? And then, if you're depleted, depends. Like if you're nutritionally depleted and your gut's not absorbing, maybe you need some bone broth or something to fix your gut. You might be in that state. It doesn't mean you have to eat meat for the rest of your life, but I fell off the wagon with veganism once I got pregnant. I couldn't maintain the diet. I was losing teeth.
Filling you up, like you felt like you needed to eat more.
Yeah, and different. And I had to trust my cravings, and I had to it was hard on me. I was like militant vegan. Like I was like killing animals is wrong and all this stuff. And I was judging it real hard. And I had to just go in the other direction and accept it and deal with my guilt and deal with, all of it. And then I realized there's a medium road that I can walk, and it's responsible. So there's a responsible way that I can, deal with meat and things in my life and eggs and stuff. Like all my neighbors have chickens and they're happy chickens. So I'm going to have the eggs, they're there for me, and I feel good or I don't feel good, whatever the food is. Like if you desire it and you're craving it, it might be something there for you. But actually, Andrew Kaufman just did, I think he called it deconstructing diets. He just did a course on all the diets. So he had experts come in to discuss all the diets. So that might be interesting for people who are exploring. Yeah. But I think the main thing with the food is do right by yourself. Like do what you need to do for you. But if you find yourself judging others because they're doing it different, then you got to check yourself, because I know the factory farming industry is fucking disgusting. It shouldn't exist. Okay. I 100% agree. I think all of the industries we have are gross and wrong and need to stop. Like this, even the way they slaughter them and how they pack them into these hot cars, and people are hypocrites. They love one animal and love a good rescue story, but they don't care about how the calf is ripped away from the mother, and they aren't aware of what's really going on, right? But what we're going to do is do better. We keep trying to do better and cleaner and make better choices and forgive ourselves for our sins, our mistakes, and I ask all the animals for forgiveness. I send, my faith and my prayer from inside. I do what I can do to try to offer back to the scenario of how they
I get that. Yeah.
So I'm just saying that I found this middle road with the diets, and also that I like to change what I eat from time to time. And there might be a time when you do a very sacred ritual where you ingest butter, or I don't know, you do something for a certain period of time. Then you live in a tropical climate and you can eat fruit all day long and feel great, and you get lots of sunlight, and it's a perfect diet for you. I could literally just eat coconuts, plantain, bananas, and mangoes when I was in Costa Rica. I think that, and I'd have some rice. I have like rice and beans and that. Like I lived off of that for months, and I was fine. I was fit. I was happy. It was awesome. My poops were great. Everything was great, right? That worked for then and there. Yeah. And if you're sick and you can't digest, yeah, simple food, simple diet, simple stuff. Yeah. I usually take people off meat because of the amount of enzymes required to digest heavy proteins and that kind of stuff. I think we're still babies in our awareness and knowledge, and we're coming into our adolescence, and all of these things will be looked at again and again. But if you have a local community like I do, I go to the farms themselves. You can go right to the farm and you say, how are you dealing with your animals? What are your methods? Are they ethical? I mean, yeah, they're all going to eventually go to the slaughterhouse, but there's different ways to slaughter animals, and there's different ways.
Were they free grazing and
did they have
free range and
and all that stuff? Now, if I had a farm with animals, they'd probably all be in my house.
Me too.
And I'd probably never be able to slaughter them. So I'm thankful for those who have abilities to do some of these jobs that not all of us can do. Like I can look at surgeries while eating a sandwich. That doesn't bother me. Some people are squeamish with that stuff because I've dealt with the body so much, right? So it's a different sensitization. But I guess my point is, if people feel offended that other people are eating meat, then they have more work to do than they think. Okay?
Yeah. Well, I'm someone who doesn't want to judge others and focus on other people. Someone like the guy Johnny that we both know, we've had a lot of issues, and I don't want to focus, even like you were saying earlier about like talk about good things. Like I don't want to just stay on the negative and just focus and just always pointing out the bad and focusing on others and what they need to do. Like I don't feel that's right, and that doesn't work. Because right away, we all know that you're going to put up a wall, a person's going to fight with you. You say you're right, they're wrong, I'm good, you're evil. The conversation's done. They're not going to talk to you. There's not going to be a communication at that point. So, yeah, I'm someone who's totally against stop worrying about other people. And all you really can do is control yourself, and you just got to take care of yourself. And then through the way you act, others can see that, and maybe they'll want to be like that. But to force what you want onto other people is like one of the stupidest things to me. It's just going to get you to fight with everybody, is my opinion.
Well, it comes from love. Ultimately, it's just misappropriated love, right? We have love and compassion for life. If you have that inside of you, as we all do, then if you see life being hurt, then you feel that. And you feel compassion for those who suffer, then you want to end their suffering. And that's a natural human quality, which is endearing. The problem gets to where we are trying to we're talking about massive industries here. And I tried to do all I could to change it. And the only thing I could do was just not allow it into my personal world. And once I got so negative with the judging of everyone, you know, I walk down the street and see people at the hot dog stand eating a hot dog, and I hated those people. I thought the worst things inside of my mind about those people. Now, is that a loving, compassionate place that I thought I was being at because I'm protecting animals? No. So I'm okay.
Oh, it
So
sounds like anger.
well, yeah, I'm loving the animals, but I'm hating the people because then I'm not in loving compassion. I'm not there. I haven't arrived, right?
Yeah.
So I had to look at what I was doing, because that got me to the worst place I've ever been in as far as depression goes. I was the most miserable, depressed person after I graduated from university. I thought the world was shit. I thought people were shit. I was angry about GMOs because I had just got a degree in it, and I realized how damaging it was. I'm like, oh my gosh, these people are promoting the most disgusting things, and it's so big. How do I stop it? Like, they're just doing it, and my say doesn't matter. And like, I feel that way about chemtrails, and I'm so angry when I see them putting the lines, and I'm like, I want to just shoot them down with my mind, and I want to destroy them. I want them gone, dead. Like, it's just, and I have to stop myself. Whoa, you know, that only hurts me. I just hurt me and the collective with that energy. I just blasted us all with hate. Like, how did does it stop the line in the sky? Not at all. You know, does it stop the person eating the hot dog? Did it stop the slaughter of the cow? It did not, and probably contributed to it by that energy, by means of it. So we want to check ourselves before we wreck ourselves.
Yeah.
And I had to learn all that.
Wow. I mean, I remember I told Fabian and you that I wanted to do a short show with you, but it's always so amazing to talk to you.
Feel bad. I enjoy conversations. I think it's important, and you know, I like talking with you because you're genuine, and you you're educated as well. Like, you have you've looked at and gone into the belly of the beast, and you see, right? So it's important to have conscious conversations. So, you know, for that I give my time, because I feel I know my purpose, because I found my purpose, and that's to be the teacher, and it's to be the one that puts herself out there, and to be brave and be judged, whatever it is, and be okay with it, and accept myself no matter what, and then model that for my child, but also for others, and hope that they will achieve what they're meant to in this limited life, and also in their eternal, you know, aspects, and not. And to bring a lightheartedness to it to some degree, because they're very heavy topics, and I try to joke, and you know, I actually see myself like a comedian sometimes. I don't think other people do, but
I try to be the same way, and I don't think people see me that way either.
I think we both would do wonderful with stand-up, because I've done stand-up before, and I got really good feedback. And you know, sometimes I cuss, and I'm trying to not, because I know I don't mean to trigger people. It's just I'm trying to be like really fundamentally honest, and sometimes that's my trucker mouth comes out when I'm fundamentally honest. But I'm also trying to be delicate to others, and consider others, you know, also. So it's all, again, modeling, you know, for people, and that's what gets me up in the morning, right? So I appreciate us doing this and sharing this information and just talking free form. And I used to even judge myself on the camera like crazy. I mean, like,
I never even wanted to be on camera. I wanted to be like that band Tool, like you just see a shadow of me or something. Maybe like I never wanted to do it to be like people know me or my face recognized.
It was nerve-wracking at first. I didn't know. Like the first video, you could see I'm terrified. It's the one on fevers. It's like,
okay,
or something. I'm like wide-eyed.
Like everything else, though, we get a little bit more used to it, you know.
Yeah. I think we become seasoned, we become mature, we become wise, we take the risks, we accept the faults. We, you know, we look at what we're supposed to do and we just try to do it as best we can. And that's all we can ask of anybody and or from ourselves as well. So I think we're going to get there. You know, I do still feel that there's a real splitting off, and that those of us who are consciously aware are working on new systems and are getting to the point of how the law works and how we can put ourselves into special
Yeah, I
standing.
feel like there's a lot of awakenings in a lot of areas, a lot of
Yeah.
new things, you know.
And it is interesting that it is pockets, eh? It's like little, and a gentleman who's dead now, a gentleman that I met a while ago, he said to me, he saw the world as like beehives. So he saw that everybody has their beehive, you know, and eventually the beehives grow, and that then inner roads between the two beehives like connect and amalgamate. And that's kind of what we're doing. We're like all these little beehives of communities that have sprung up, and they're all teaching, and we're all growing and learning and unlearning, and they're growing, and then they're going to connect. And that's going to be really interesting times for us, and powerful times when we finally do and create our own ways of solving problems without causing more damage. And so I'm looking forward to all of this. There's a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
For sure, but it's hopeful.
Yeah, that's a very positive message.
Yeah.